Welcome back to the North Florida Daffodil Guide. If you're just joining me, make sure to watch part 1. That's where we solve the mystery of which daffodils are proven growers. Now in part 2, we're going to cover how to plant them and maintain them so they grow successfully. I'm giving you the 9 keys that will ensure your daffodils don't just bloom only once, but will come back year after year, naturalize, and form those beautiful clumps of gorgeous flowers that we associate with southern gardens. These aren't just tips I found online. These are field-tested practices that work specifically for our climate and soils in North Florida. So let's dive into key number 1. The first key is to monitor the winter sun. Don't go by what you think the sun is in the summertime or spring. You need to be out in the yard in the morning and the afternoons in December, January, and February so that you can make sure that the area that you're going to choose receives 6 or more hours of direct sun during those critical growing months and blooming months. Key number 2 is selecting your plants from reputable growers. I avoid big box stores and other places where I don't know how they're storing the bulbs. A lot of people will store daffodils in the refrigerator or refrigerated containers. For Florida, that's death for your daffodils. Florida has a warm climate. The daffodil bulbs here do not need that kind of chill, and it may kill the flowers inside the bulb so that you'll have crop failure and you'll think, well, I got the right variety and they don't grow, so that just proves it doesn't grow. No, it proves that you should not chill the bulbs. So key number 1 was the winter sun rule. Key number 2 is to get your bulbs from a reputable source. So there are 2 bulb growers that provide catalogs and newsletters, lots of information, and they grow bulbs specifically for southern gardeners and for those of us in zones 9. And they even have a few daffodils that can go to zones 10. Not many, but there are a few out there. The first one is Southern Bulb Company. The second one is Brent and Becky's Bulbs. I put the links to the websites in the description below so you can check them out. Key number 3 is the no chill rule. The ideal is when you receive them, you plant them within a week or so. Have your garden bed ready or the container that you're going to use. If you do need to store them for a little bit of time, use a mesh bag for your bulbs. Put them in an air-conditioned area in your home where the temperature is regulated. But the ideal is to plant them as soon as you can. Key number 4 is soil requirements. So daffodils can tolerate a variety of soils. What they prefer are sandy, loamy mixed soils. Sandy soils will need improvements because they might be too acidic, and they tend to be low in nutrients and will need some organic material and compost added to them. Clay soils can be very dense. Daffodils don't like their feet wet. The roots will rot and the plant will die. If you have clay soils, you will need to add improvements. You might need to add some kind of mason sand to the soil as well as compost and other things. This is a soil test bag and the instructions that go with it. Go by your extension or call them and pick this up. Get a soil test sample and find out what your soil pH is and what especially the phosphorus and the potassium content of your soil is. Daffodils do not like very acidic soil, and soils that have low potassium or low phosphorus content will have to be improved with nutrients added to them. This is where your county extension agent can really help you with looking at the results of your soil tests so that you can make sure that you're putting your daffodils in the right soil where their roots will be able to thrive and take up nutrients. The soil needs to be well draining. Check the area that you're going to plant in the wintertime to make sure that it is a well-drained area. Key number 5, the depth and spacing 3 times rule. The rule of thumb is plant your daffodils 6 to 8 inches deep. The ones that go 8 inches are the tizzetas, like paper whites. When you're planting, have a measuring stick or a yardstick so that you can actually measure the depth, because you're digging, and you think, oh, this is too deep. But you'd be surprised how far 8 inches is. When you plant, put the bulb in the hole, backfill in the dirt, and don't tamp it down. The ×3 rule is the spacing. You measure 3 times the diameter of the bulb, and that's the distance between the plants. And that gives you a nice design look in the garden. You could always space them out further. In terms of the spacing with the tizzetas, because they get large, you want to space the plants 8 inches apart in all directions. Key number 6, mulch wisdom. Mulch is important to help stabilize the soil temperature. The ideal mulch for your daffodils would be pine straw because it's not so dense. I've used a thin layer of mini pine bark nuggets, but I'm careful not to put it too thick around the plants. Spread it out 2 inches, maybe in the summer heat, 3 at the most, so that the roots stay cooler in the summer's heat but don't rot from too much moisture. Key number 7 is strategic watering. We're planting daffodils for the ones that will bloom in late winter, early spring. We're going to be planting in October and November. When you plant, water deeply and then just monitor the rainfall. If you have a dry November and December, you probably need to water once a week. In the natural life cycle of your daffodils, they'll bloom and bloom and bloom, and then the blooms will wither, the leaves will wither and die away. And then the plant is resting through the summer. You don't water after the plant has stopped blooming. You just let nature take its course. However, our rainy season in Florida tends to be in August, September through October. If the September rains don't happen, then you need to start watering, especially for the early bloomers that are going to bloom in maybe December, early January. Monitor the rainfall in the month of October and then monitor into December. If you get some good rain, you don't need to continue watering. Key number 8, the golden rule of leaves, which is leave the leaves alone. People think they need to cut the leaves because the leaves look unsightly. Think of that foliage withering, turning yellow as solar panels for the bulbs. Just like solar panels absorb the energy from the sun, the plant is drawing the nutrition in those leaves into the bulb to make a flower inside the bulb that will have enough energy to break through the soil come the spring, grow and produce a flower. If you find the leaves unsightly, there's some strategies that you can use. Plant some shallow-rooted perennials or annual plants around them that are going to be growing up in April and May. Their stems and leaves are going to spread out, and you won't notice the leaves of your daffodils that are now shriveled and kind of crispy. 3 plants are good candidates. Marigolds are one, zinnias are another, and verbena. Their leaves will cover that area, help with moderating the summer temperatures of the soil. And if you absolutely have to remove them, maybe there's some reason in your neighborhood, there's an HOA or some restriction about having unsightly plants in the bed, then wait until 6 weeks has passed. Then you can go ahead and remove the leaf. And number 9 is maintenance. Every 3 to 5 years, the plants that have really grown large, gotten a very large bunch, and now they're crowding each other, you need to dig them up and separate them. They will thank you by continuing to produce glorious blooms. The other maintenance chore is weeding. Weeds compete with our flowers and other plants for water and nutrients. Remove those weeds so that your plants get the best chance for the nutrients that they need. Fertilization goes back to the results of your soil test. I would recommend that you talk with your county agent in the cooperative extension about the best kinds of fertilizer. What you want for daffodils is a lower nitrogen content. When do you fertilize? You can fertilize in December. You can fertilize after they've bloomed. Just work it lightly into the top of the soil. Most daffodils, believe it or not, are very light feeders. They don't require a lot of fertilizer. They thrive on the nutrition that's already in the soil that you have. That's why it's worth it to take the time to prepare your beds. Daffodils are some of the most rewarding flowers for a North Florida gardener if you follow the 9 principles we've covered. Be sure to start your sun mapping this winter so you know where to strategically plant your daffodils this fall. For some dazzling winter blooms, check out this video on cool season annuals that you can add. They will grow from midwinter through spring and bring delight and pollinators. If you've not subscribed, subscribe, Gardener, for more gardening tips and information for your yard. See you again soon.